Lost Letterman. Man, we have a special treat. We didn't even do any music tonight. We're gonna get right to it. We
Okay.
have we have, as we always say, and it's not only about the players who play the game when it comes to Lost Letterman. We like to acknowledge and give everyone their flowers. And this young gentleman, yes, young gentleman, is definitely deserves his flowers tonight. 35 plus years in the game. And I hate to just say a sports writer because I know you have written or do write more or cover more than sports, but yeah, probably
Yeah.
best known as a sports writer or covering the beat there in North Carolina and particularly in the Charlotte area. We have
Mhm.
Langston Wertz Jr. with us tonight. What's going on, Langston?
I'm well, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining. Let's get right to it. Obviously, does your story start in Charlotte? I know you went to West Charlotte, but talk
Yeah.
about kind of where your story starts.
Yeah. I mean, both my parents are from Charlotte. My dad was in the service. So I was born in
Mhm.
Rapid City, South Dakota,
Oh
and we
wow.
lived all yeah we lived all over the country. A lot of cold weather places, Detroit, and we lived in obviously South Dakota. We lived in Cleveland. Then we moved to New York when I started school in New York. And my dad stayed in New York for 30 years. My parents got divorced. My mom moved back to Charlotte, so I was back and forth. I would do summers there, school here. I actually started school in New York, but I've basically been in Charlotte like full time since middle school.
Mhm.
Other than when I went to college in Chapel Hill, but I went to West Charlotte High School, which is one of the largest high schools in North Carolina, predominantly black school at the time I went. Um, and it was a great experience, man. And then I went to UNC Chapel Hill, had a great experience there. The place that turned me down for internships 3 years in a row gave me a job offer, which is wild. And yeah, I started at the Charlotte Observer. I don't know if I was intending to be there this long, but it just kind of worked out. When I met my wife, she was going to take a job in Washington D.C., and I was had an interview with the Post, and I was really down the road with it. But then she decided to take a job here in Charlotte, and we just kind of been here.
Man, it's crazy how that happened for you. First question I want to ask you,
Yeah,
and I think I know that time because you graduated, if I'm not mistaken, high school '84.
I did.
When
Yeah,
did you when did you kind of get the writing and journalism bug? Because I'll be honest with you, most of the times growing up, because I grew up about that era, I didn't know many
yeah,
people who said they wanted to be journalists. I did not
yeah.
know very many people, and it probably is more so of the people that I was hanging around. But when did you kind of
Yeah.
get that journalism bug?
Man, it's funny because my mom, I think, had some type of predilection I was going to do this because she made me take typing when I
Wow.
was in high school. I was the only boy in the typing class, and I took it twice. And then she sent me to Chapel Hill my junior year of high school, maybe my sophomore year, to take a class on writing. Um, and I didn't know it then. I went to school. I was pre med, pre law. I hated both of those.
Mm.
And we were taking a English class, and they were asking us to go write, a story about whatever you want to write about. And I like sports, so I said I'll write about sports. And I think I wrote about a UNC basketball game or something. And we had to grade each other's papers. And the young lady who graded my paper said, you're a really good writer. You should try out for the student newspaper. I didn't know. So I tried out for the student newspaper, and the guy that was the editor of the student newspaper now is a colleague of mine named Scott Fowler, who was a columnist at the Charlotte Observer, and he hired me. There were like 300 people applied for the job. He hired me, and that was crazy. But I started once I got behind that computer, and back then they were these big old CRT monitors. You old enough to know what I'm talking about? Those big
Yeah.
old CRT monitors with the little cursor, doop, 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 doop. And once I got behind that, man, it was like this is what I want to do. I was like hooked. It was like
No,
it's just like guys like basketball, like football, or in my case, love golf. I mean, it's just you find that thing, and it gives you that runner's high. And writing, even to this day, still gives me that runner's high. I love writing. I've gotten a little. I don't like transcribing interviews so much,
uh-huh.
but once I get them transcribed, I'm using AI a lot to transcribe them a little. But you still have to like go
Uh-oh.
back and make sure. You got to go back and make sure. But I love sitting down, and there's nothing I love more, honestly, than sitting down writing a story, especially when I got a good one. When I know I got a good one, and I just got to get out of the way and just let it. let it come. And but yeah, it's still fun to me.
And we're gonna get to that, man. I bet you got a cool office in your house or somewhere where you got just a bunch of books or whatever, like a professor's office. But with
A little
that being
bit,
said,
yeah.
were you when did the sports come in? Has sports always been something that you've had a passion for, or is that something you developed later on in life?
I always loved sports. I grew up playing, in the street with my boys. I was more of a football player growing
Mhm.
up. I didn't play for the team. I was so little. I was like 5'5". I was real fast, but I was little. And when I got to college, we started playing a lot of basketball, like intramural basketball in Willen Gym, and you get to play with all the Carolina guys. I played with Michael Jordan. He come in, like, who's that dude? I didn't know who he was, and people like lining around the court. And they said, that's Michael. Because remember, this is like 84. He's not Michael
Right,
Jordan.
right, yeah, yeah.
And it's like, that's Michael Jordan. And I was like, that dude is crazy. I mean, he was like so athletic. It was like something you never seen before. But yeah, I've always liked sports, and I love basketball. And when I got older, I loved golf, and I love watching sports. I like writing about sports. It's just like I said, it's not work. I shouldn't say that. My boss might see it, but it's not work.
Now, and you talked to you just spoke about Carolina, and I think you probably could not have picked a better time to go to the University of North Carolina. Well, not that you picked it, but you probably could not have gone at a better time. 84. I know you
Yeah,
just caught Mike when he was leaving, and I'm
yeah.
sure, as you just said, he was still had a presence on the campus. But you
Yeah,
talking,
he had just left to go pro when I was coming in
yeah.
like the fall of '84, so he had just left school and he was about to start his rookie year of playing ball.
But I mean, you talking Kenny Smith,
Yeah,
Renzinos. I mean, you talking like a
I was in classes with all those dudes. We used to play against
man
them all in Williams.
with Dean Smith, probably at
Yeah,
his apex. Dean Smith, is
yeah,
such a great
yeah.
environment. So talk a little bit about what you learned by being on that campus, because I've never really heard too many people say
Um,
anything negative when it comes to
it
their
I mean
experience at the University of North Carolina.
it was incredible. We had a large. It wasn't a large. We had a really tight knit community of black people on campus. They all kind of tucked us into the South Campus. It seemed like, but we all
Yeah.
lived down on South Campus, and which is like 30-minute walk for people unfamiliar. So 30-minute walk to where everything is, which is on North Campus. But you grew up fast, but you had a lot of fun. You had to learn how to take care of yourself, learn how to budget your money, because I think the first semester we blew through all of our Pell Grants and whatnot. But
Pell Grants.
yeah, yeah, Pell Grants, yeah. But it was fun. It was classes were hard, some of them, but school was fun. I had to work a lot of jobs to stay in school, but I met a lot of people. A lot of people that I went to school with now are, industry leaders, politicians, doctors, lawyers, professional athletes. So you kind of knew back then that these people were going to be successful, but you didn't really know. And then you come out and it's like, oh, I went to school with that guy. It's like a judge. There's like a judge in town. It's like, oh, I went to school with Lou. It's like, so you meet a lot of people, and everybody was really cool. Chapel Hill was just a really cool place. Everybody was kind of laid back. There was not I visit a lot of schools. I've had a chance to go to a lot of campuses in my comings and goings, but Chapel Hill definitely is still one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever been to. And I just can't, for myself, I could never imagine a better college experience. I mean, other people will probably say the same about where they went, but just a big melting pot, and just met people from all over the world, learned about different cultures, and because you're all mashed together in dormitories, you just kind of get to know each other. There's no way around it. And the people were just friendly. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't really fight. We didn't, there weren't any issues or anything. We just kind of existed. It's just what it was. It was fun.
Man, and it's crazy you should say. I have never. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people. I have never heard anyone, especially African American people, say anything negative about the University of North Carolina and their experience there. So, man,
No, it
that's
was it was we
kudos
were
to
we
you,
were
brother.
we were very accepted. And like I said, people from all over, and everybody just kind of got along. We all just, like I said, we were mashed together in these dormitories. We had a co-ed dorm, which was crazy to me going to school. And like the boys lived on one side of the dorm and girls lived on the other side, same floor. I mean, it was like, crazy, but it worked. We all made it work. It's fun.
What with that being said, now take us back to that time period. Are you still? What are you kind of? And I know you're young. What were your goals at that time? Because obviously, 35 years in now, it's easy to say, "Man, I always
Bro,
wanted to be writing."
I
But did
just,
you
I
have
just,
like long-term goals, or what were you
no,
thinking during that
no.
time?
I mean, like my first couple years, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Because when you start out in college, like most liberal arts colleges, you start out in the general college, whatever the name is of your program, where everybody kind of takes the same thing, where you get that base education before you determine a major. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I told you I went in thinking I was going to be pre-law, pre-med, but as soon as I took that first econ class, and no, it's not for me, bro. Not for me. I'm a writer. I'm not a mathematician. And but yeah, the first couple of years, I was just having fun. Girls all over the place like I never seen before, and it was just that was different. And nobody kind of telling you get up and go to class or do your homework. I mean, you kind of had to figure it out. There's a lot of people that didn't figure it out
Right,
because
right,
it
right.
was a little too much fun the first semester. And they told us, like the first week of school, like look to your left, look to your right. Somebody's not gonna be there at the end of the next semester. So, but yeah, I mean, college was fun. I didn't know what I was going to do, but by my junior year, when I wrote that paper I alluded to earlier, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. I knew I wanted to be a journalist, and I knew I wanted to be a sports writer. And it
Now,
was
now you got on with the Charlotte Observer right out of Carolina, correct?
yes. I got
Man,
they
that's like a
hired me. Now understand I went an extra semester because I didn't have enough experience because I determined my major at the start of my junior year. So I had not done any internships. So I did an internship my junior year, my senior year, and they said I needed more experience. So I came back basically and did an extra semester. I think I only took maybe 3 classes, but I worked 3 jobs. So I worked for the
damn.
Chapel News. I worked for the Chapel newspaper. I worked for the Daily Tar Heel, and I was working at a TV station, WRAL in Durham or Raleigh. Somewhere else. I think that's the right call. But I was working at a TV station because I was actually majored in radio, television, motion pictures. I wasn't majoring in writing
Mhm.
because my dean thought that even though I knew I wanted to be a writer, just to have that other background would be good. And it's funny. I mean, I'm way older now, but it's funny because now everything is video now.
Right.
When I was growing up, everything was writing. It's kind of funny. I almost feel like I came along at the wrong time. Because there's so many more opportunities now with the video end of things and social media and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I've always known I wanted to be a writer from junior year on, and I just was really focused on doing that. And they gave me a job, and they hired me November of '88 because I went that extra semester. I think I must have graduated over Thanksgiving weekend. I may have the dates wrong, but I started work like the next Monday, and I've been there ever since. I started in a little bureau in Gastonia, which is a little town south of Charlotte. And we had bureaus all over in little towns all around Charlotte, kind of like the AJC does. We had little bureaus,
Mhm.
and after about 10 months, they hired me and brought me over to the what we call the mainframe, the mothership, and I've been there ever since.
How excited were you? Because I mean, it's tough to land a job like that, even back then,
Yeah, no, it
at
was it was it
a
was
big
darn
time
it,
paper like
it
that
was
now.
darn near impossible now, and we hire a lot of young people now, which is kind of funny because
Mhm.
to get a job at the Charlotte Observer, they would basically say you need 5 years experience minimum.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, you're talking probably somebody about 30 by the time
Mhm.
they got that type of experience back then. And you got to remember back then there weren't all these web jobs. There wasn't Ansel.
Right.
There wasn't
It's-
ESPN.com. There
no.
weren't Panthers.com and
That's
Falcons.com and
why
all
I'm
these other
saying it was
places
so
to work.
difficult.
Yeah, you I mean,
Mhm.
and all the best writers were working at newspapers. All the dudes you
Right.
see on like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, they were all
Yeah.
working in newspapers. And so it was really hard to get a job. And once those guys, and I'm kind of like, people laughing now when they say I've been here 36 years, but back then everybody stayed at their paper forever. Nobody
Yeah.
left. So if you wanted to cover the Falcons and the Falcons writer was 40, forget about it. It's never going to come around for you.
Right.
So yeah, it was really hard to get in. And it was a little interesting when they hired me because I was 22. And I'm coming into the main Charlotte Observer. I'm 22, going on 23. And I'm working with a bunch of 35, 40-year-olds that have been there for a while, not going anywhere. And these are the guys I grew up reading. They were my like heroes. And I'm like, man, there's Ron Green and there's Tom Sawyer. These are the big guys in our town. And it was intimidating, and they would like all get together and go to lunch, leave me sitting because they didn't know me, leave me sitting there, and I'm just like, dang, they don't like me, and it wasn't that they didn't like me, they just didn't know me, and I'm just so, I'm so young, and they're older. They're talking about kids and whatnot. I'm talking about going to the party on the weekend. So. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. The business was so different. You could even smoke in the building when they hired me. That's how long ago it was. So you go out there and people smoking and the phone's ringing. It was like walking in New York City every day. It was kind of fun.
Now we all know about Mike Wilbon,
Yeah,
William Roden,
yeah.
obviously the iconic
Heavyweights,
uh,
heavyweights. Yeah,
black writers. Who
yeah.
are some of the people, and obviously they don't have to be black, but who are some of the people that and you just spoke about a few of them, who are some of the journalists that you actually not looked up to, but just looked at as kind of a
Man,
role models
you
along
might
your
not
path
know
as you started?
you might not know these names, but the two guys that I wanted to be when I was growing up was Mitch Albom, who was the Detroit
Oh,
Free
yeah.
Press columnist,
Yeah. Mitch
and
Albom.
Gary Smith was Sports Illustrated, is what we call takeout writer. So he write the big story in Sports
Mhm.
Illustrated. Back then, Sports Illustrated put their best story at the end, like the last 5 pages, and he would
Right.
always write that story. And I remember my boss, who was a guy named Gary Schwab, was just one of the best guys. I mean, just beautiful man. He was friends with Gary Smith, and Gary Smith came and spoke to us in the office. And you talk about getting to meet your hero, man. I was like, I want to be you. And he was telling me, how he goes about writing stories. I'm asking a gazillion questions. I remember everybody else had left the room, and I'm still asking questions. I'm like, this is like a kid meeting LeBron. It's like this
Mhm.
is your guy, and that was really cool. But those are two guys I really grew up reading a lot and wanting to write like as much as I could. I just thought the way they could phrase things, how they would structure their stories. There was an art to it, and it really attracted me how those two did it.
And to your point, during that time, um, I think, even though obviously you did, the
Yeah,
writers of like Mitch Albom and people like that in kind of that not fraternity sorority, the young journalists,
yeah, yeah,
those people were stars. Like now it's a
yeah.
little different. They're stars because you actually see their faces, but
Mhm.
not everybody knew their faces, but they were just as big
No, their
because
their bylines
yeah,
their bylines were stars. If you
yeah,
saw
they were
Bill
stars.
Roden, if you saw Bill Roden, although he had his picture, if you saw Bill
Right,
Roden, you knew that was a big deal. If you saw Michael
right,
Wilbon, you knew that was a big deal.
right.
And to have that column sig was such a. I mean, that to be a columnist back then was like being on um, Stephen A's show right now. I mean,
Yeah.
because you had your picture in the paper.
Right, right, right.
And people knew that meant that you were a heavy hitter because you had your picture
now,
in the
now
paper. So
paint
that was really cool.
now paint the picture of Charlotte during that time because I know Charlotte has changed a lot. We're talking like 89, 90, and I know that's right when
Yeah,
the Hornets first came.
yeah.
And
I was
talk
at the
about
first
how it changed from the time you left to
the
go to
city.
Carolina, yeah, the city,
Oh man,
to when you came back.
Charlotte was in 1984 when I left, and I may have the numbers wrong, but this is just approximate. Charlotte was probably a quarter million people, and I mean the metro.
Right.
And now it's 3.3 million people.
Yeah.
When I left, there were two buildings downtown.
Right.
The corner Trade and Tryon was like the center of Charlotte. It was called the Square,
Mhm.
and there was a Belk's there. There was like a clothing store. It was like where everybody went to go do something because Charlotte was, a pretty small city back then. And then every time, I mean, literally every time I would come home from school, there was a new building going up. Literally, I'm not lying to you. Every single time. And there was just such an incredible surge of development between 85 and 95. And then it just didn't stop after that. Charlotte just keeps growing and keeps growing. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. And fortunately or unfortunately, every time you hear about a top 10 place to live in the country, they always list Charlotte. I'm like, no, we're done, y'all. Y'all stay out. We're full. The lights on. We're full. But Charlotte's changed a lot, man. It's gotten a lot more diverse. It's gotten a lot more international. A lot of Fortune 500 companies are coming here. A lot of opportunities coming here. It's the number 2 banking capital in the country, behind New York City. There's just so much stuff founded here, and the food scene's getting better. That was kind of always the food scene here was lacking for some reason, but it's really catching up now. But you can it still has that old Charlotte feel. Parts of it does, and it's a great place to raise a family, and it gives you all the big city you can want. But if you don't want that, if you still want the old, more suburban feel, whereas in Atlanta, you got to go way out to get it. You don't have to quite go out as far to get it.
Now, with that being said, and I was around during this time.
Yeah.
And I could be off on this.
Yeah.
When the Hornets came, that was a special time for Charlotte. Can you talk a little bit about how special that was, having the Hornets?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that first year, it was they sucked. Well, I shouldn't say they sucked. They didn't win a lot of games. They didn't win a lot of games. I'm talking Rex Chapman's rookie year. But that place was sold out every night. So talk a little bit about the Hornets.
Well, before the Hornets, our pro sports was pro wrestling, because we had the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling was here. Ric Flair was probably our biggest, sports star. I mean, wrestling was huge. I mean, all the arenas would get filled by wrestlers. We had Memorial Stadium, which was our big stadium back then. It said about 20,000 people. Wrestling was selling out. The old Charlotte Coliseum, before they built this one I'm about to tell you about, it held about, at one time, it was the largest enclosed arena in the world. It held about 12,000, and wrestling was selling out. That was the only thing, or Parliament Funkadelic. I mean, those are the things that would sell it out, or Elvis or somebody. But the Hornets, George Shinn really made a push to bring professional basketball to Charlotte. Nobody thought it was going to work here at first, and then people started saying, wait a minute, people love college basketball here. They love pro basketball too. And we're right here on the border of 2 states. I mean, for your viewers that don't know, South Carolina is like literally touches North Carolina. I mean, touches Charlotte. So they got the Hornets in 87, I think, maybe it was 86. And the first year they were going to play was 88. And I went to the first one. I think one of the first times we were let in there, my memory might be going bad, but I remember the scoreboard fell to the ground. Like one of the first times it had opened. It's like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work or not. But, man, every game they had for the first 4 or 5 years, if you watch OKC on television and you see the fan support, that's what Charlotte was like. I mean, it was like every game was like it was like Broadway. People would literally dress up in tuxedos and suits and ties and long dresses and hats to go to the games. I mean, it was an event. There was a guy named Dancing Barry who would dress up in a tux and do backflips all down the aisles in between the timeouts and the quarters. And he became a celebrity in town, Dancing Barry. I mean, everybody wanted to do a story with Dancing Barry. The players were incredible. The Hornets were awful at first, but they got good fairly quickly when they got Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning. One of the banks painted a mural of Muggsy Bogues, Larry Johnson, Alonzo Mourning. I think that's right. I mean, stories and stories high on the side of a building, of a skyscraper. I mean, the Hornets were like, they could do no wrong. It was incredible for a few years there. And in fact, one of the first dates I ever took my wife on, we went to a playoff game, the Knicks and the Hornets. It was just incredible. That time, the Hornets were really special. It's just sad they've never been consistently good, because I still think the fan base is here and wants to see a winner. But, we lost the Hornets. They went to New Orleans for a while. And and then they came back, and Bob Johnson bought the team. He kind of named the team after himself. That didn't go over too well, and they were called the Bobcats. But they've come back, and Michael Jordan on the team. It's kind of rudderless for a little while. But I think, they have new ownership now. They had a really good draft this past year. I think they're making some decent moves. I think the Hornets are on the right track, and I think the city is ready for them to be a winner. I think Charlotte's not too far. This is gonna sound crazy, but I look at Indiana making the finals. I don't think Indiana is that much better than Charlotte. I think Charlotte might be better than Indiana. They just can't stay healthy. I know that sounds crazy, but they just can't stay healthy.
I'm not gonna say it sounds crazy. I'm saying that's a big.
Think about it, Charlotte. If I take LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Miles against Indiana's front three. I think you say Charlotte's front three are better. It's just Charlotte's front three never play together. They always hurt.
Well, I just want Charlotte to make the playoffs first. I just wanted to make the playoffs first, but
it's been 7 years, something like that. I'm saying, but they have the pieces. They just can't stay healthy. The question is, can they stay healthy? And now they have some shooting. The two guys they drafted this year are going to bring some shooting. Conker Nipple of Duke and Liam, names escaped me, from Connecticut. They're going to have some shooting now with spaces of floor for LaMelo. LaMelo's an incredible creator, and Brandon Miller's going to be a star this league. He's going to be a star.
35 years in, I will defer to your judgment. Charlotte will kill Indiana next year, and
I'm not saying they're going to kill Indiana. I'm saying if they're healthy, I think they can be, especially in the East next year, because Boston's out basically. I think Charlotte definitely can be a real playoff team, not a play-in team. I think, and they haven't been out of the first round in ages either, so I think it'd be good for them just to really make the playoffs. I think they're gonna have a chance. I think the East is wide open, and I think they're gonna have a chance to do some damage. If they stay healthy.
And obviously we're talking NBA, but let's talk a little bit about prep sports.
Sure.
And again, over 30 years in the game. And I was actually going to write down some of the players that you've covered. And man, I said, I'm not even going to do it. I could not even do it justice. How many players you have covered? But
we've been blessed.
Talk in general about the Charlotte prep, and let's just talk about. Well, I want to focus in on basketball because I think more people would know basketball than football. But with that being said, correct me if I'm wrong. Would you categorize Charlotte as, from a prep point of view, a basketball city or area? Because it's not just Charlotte and the greater, or more of a football area. Or would you say you can't even say?
It's funny because North Carolina is called the hoop state. It's known for its basketball. It's. I'm sure New York and other places will argue, but a lot of people think North Carolina is the best place for basketball talent in the country, and it's called Hoop State. And I didn't make that up, and it's been called that for a long time. But football definitely is coming, and I remember earlier I said that Charlotte touches South Carolina,
right?
In South Carolina and where you are, Georgia, are two of the hottest hotbeds of high school football and college football in the country. And that fever definitely is coming this way. And it was funny because I can draw a line, kind of like BC and AD with when the Panthers came in 95. Before 95, Charlotte football was terrible. High school, just terrible. After 95, it just started blowing up. It used to be that if a kid got a power, now we call it power 4 now, but if a kid got a power 5 offer, that would be a story just that you got an offer. Now there's so many, I can't keep up. There's so many guys. There's 2 kids from a team just got power, committed power 4 last week. But in the old days, that would have been a big, huge headline. Now it's so many. It's like, well, I can't write about those 2 because I ain't got to write about the other 25 over here.
Right.
So football is definitely coming. I would say it's probably 50-50 now, to be honest with you. Football attracts a bigger audience, obviously. Basketball probably has more of the street cred. But there's an incredible amount of talent here. It only gets better. There's so many former pro athletes that are moving here and their kids are going to high school here. So many former pro athletes that are coaching football and basketball in town. Captain Munderland, who played for the Panthers not too long ago, he's coaching a big high school here called Chambers High School. Clinton Portis, that was a star at Miami years ago. His son that played at this Myers Park High School, which is a high school where Drake May played. Drake May is now the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. London Fletcher, who's on the Hall of Honor in Washington for the Commanders. They were called a different name we can't say when he played for them. But his son plays for a private school here, Providence Day, and Providence Day's former quarterback, Jaden Davis, is at Michigan. There's just so many dudes. Here's the thing. In the last 7 years, 5 of those years, the number 1 player in the country came from Charlotte. At some point or another, the number 1 player in the country ranked was from Charlotte.
Okay. So just for the record, you didn't answer the question, but that's fine. Basketball.
The answer to the question is it's probably about equal. I can't.
Okay. Okay. So
because I can do the same thing in basketball too.
Well, we're gonna talk some hoops, and I first really found out about Charlotte in '91. We
Yeah.
played AAU. We played the Charlotte Sonics. Man, they had
Mm.
Thad Bonaparte,
Jerry
Jeff
Stackhouse, Jeff
McGinnis,
McGinnis. Yeah, that
and
team. I covered them. Yeah.
a light skin guy, Barry Canning, on that team. And I was like,
Yeah.
man,
Oh, you
they got
remember
some
Barry
ball
Canty? That's crazy. You remember Barry Canty?
Barry Canning was good. At least
He
in
was nice. Yeah,
1991, he
he's
was.
6'5" point guard before they made 6'5" point guards.
Yeah, they had a really good team. So,
Yeah,
and I didn't know anything about Charlotte basketball at that time. And Jeff
yeah.
McGinnis, man, that guy was
It's crazy. It's
really
crazy.
good. He had one of the best pull-up jump shots I've ever seen, man, for somebody
Yeah,
that tall.
it's crazy.
So, with that being said, and I know, and I just kind of talked about those guys, but there have been so many guys to come, and girls too, to come
Mhm.
from that area. Talk a little bit about the basketball culture there in Charlotte. And one thing I have heard, and you can dispel this if I'm wrong, is it seems like with the Charlotte guys have a little bit more, or at least they did have a little bit more media push than guys from outside of the greater metropolitan Charlotte
No,
area.
that's
You might be part of that, but is that
that's
necessarily
well.
true?
I get accused of that a lot. I get accused of that a
Okay.
lot. That I push Charlotte guys. That's my job. My job is to write
Well, you're
about.
a Charlotte reporter.
My job is to write about athletes in Charlotte. So that's what I do. And to be
Yeah,
honest with you, like if we just wrote about the athletes in the region, we wouldn't make very much money. And we are here. This is a business, right? So
right,
I
right,
think
right.
a lot of times people lose sight of the newspapers and media are business things. They're business models behind that. And you're just not interviewing me for nothing, and I'm not writing stories for nothing. It's a business model. But yeah, I mean, I there is definitely that perception that Charlotte athletes get pushed more, and there's probably some truth to that. But it's also a reason why so many people keep transferring here as well.
Now, with that being, I'm glad you said that, Langston. Um, Obviously, in 1989, you probably, as a young journalist, man, you're just trying to write articles. You're just trying to
Yeah.
get it out of your head, or you're just trying to write. When did you really start becoming cognizant of the operations or the business side of it? Like, people
Writing?
need to be reading my articles too. When did that start? Start kind of being a focus, or when did you start becoming more cognizant of the fact that
Well,
it's one thing to be a good writer, it's
yeah.
another thing for a lot of people to really want to read my materials.
Well, I started to become aware of it. I tell you, I give you a good example. I work with a guy named Joe Posnanski, who is he's a columnist at NBC Sports now. He writes a lot of Major League Baseball books. Jason Whitlock was on our staff back at that same time as well.
Whitlock.
Yeah, yeah. And I tell you, the Jason you see now is not much different than the Jason that was back then. He
Oh,
just didn't
really?
have he didn't have a bigger microphone, but he had. I mean, he's not putting on. That's who he is.
Oh, he's
That's who
consistent.
he is.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got to give
that's
him
who he
respect
is.
for
He's not
that.
putting on.
Be who you are.
Yeah. No, I respect Jason. I mean, I don't always agree with him, but I mean, I know that
Yeah,
that's where he's coming from.
you're
But
not gonna
anyway, so
always agree with anybody.
no. So Joe Posnanski, it was shortly after I got over to Charlotte, maybe right before, right somewhere along in that '89 time. Magic Johnson was coming to town to a local Belks to do like I don't know if it was an autograph or he had a book or something. He was in town for something, and he was going to do some meet and greet type of thing. And the thing was on a Sunday, and I think we put in the paper that it was going to be on a Saturday, and we put it in Saturday's paper. Now remember, this is before the internet. This for social media. There's no Twitter. So what you put in the paper, everybody got that, and that was gospel because people really, and this is long, people really trusted the media. But it's one thing I hate this happened now. That trust is lost, and it's not necessarily because of local media, but that's a whole different discussion. If you want to go there, I go there. But everybody got that paper, and so hundreds of people went to the Belks on Saturday looking for Magic Johnson, and obviously he was coming the next day. So everybody's calling the paper like, what's going on, what's going on. And my boss made Joe go out to the mall, South Park Mall it's called,
Oh
and
yeah.
basically tell everybody that Magic's coming tomorrow. So he had to eat that. And it really hit me then. And I don't say that Joe's one of the best writers. I mean, I would say Joe's top 3 or 4 writers I've ever been around. So I'm not saying this to put him down. I'm saying this to say I learned how impactful what I write could be and how many people could read it, because I saw all those calls coming in and I saw how serious it was. We all make mistakes. You hate making any mistakes, but that really taught me a lesson and made me really try to get it right, and understand that there's a big audience out there that follows what you write. So from that point on, I was like, man, I gotta really like bat down the hatches and get this thing not just factually right, but make it good as well.
Let me ask you this. In 1990, if you can remember back to like 1996, I guess that's pre-internet, 1995.
Okay. Yeah.
You write an article.
Yeah.
How do you know if that's a good? How do you judge the article? How do you know it's good, or like how are you judged on that article?
What's funny is that what you're really talking about is pre-analytics.
Right,
Because now
exactly.
now
Quantify.
when we write a story, we know almost immediately, if it's clicking with an audience. Certainly within a day or two, what hit, what didn't hit. Back then, it was really just kind of guessing, because everybody got the whole paper. Nowadays people just click on the thing they want to click on. But back then, everybody got the whole paper. So I didn't know if you bought the Charles Observer for the comics, or you bought it for the editorials, or the sports, or the high school sports. I don't know what it was. I mean, so a lot of it was just kind of guessing. We would judge, people calling in about something. But if 10 people called, we thought that was a hot topic, but that may have been only 10 people that interested in the whole city. So it was really guessing. You kind of figured that, football and basketball were going to have a decent audience no matter what you did. Recruiting, we kind of figured definitely had a high level audience. We started to put a lot of interest in recruiting right about that time. But we didn't know. My boss was I mentioned earlier, Gary Schwab. He's a big girls soccer fan. He coached girls soccer. His daughters played girls soccer, so that meant a lot to him. So he used to send me out to cover girls soccer like all throughout the playoffs. We spent all this money for me to go stay in hotel rooms and cover these teams. And it's funny because as soon as we got analytics, I realized that there was no audience for that. But we used to spend so much time covering that. So analytics has changed the game quite a bit. But back then, it was really just, I think I know.
Speaking about analytics, and I almost akin this to a musician, because I really think you're an artist at the end of the day. To me, you're an artist. But unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, just because you write something that you feel is fantastic, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It might not resonate with everyone. Like, if Jay-Z makes a album that he feels is great, it might not sell a lot. How does it feel when you've written something really good and you don't feel like it's resonated with the broader audience?
Bro, I don't have to.
Or you can't do it for them.
I don't have to feel. I know, because analytics tell you. You can dial that thing down to the zip code, to the neighborhood. I mean, you know pretty. Like I said, pretty quickly, and by second day, you really know what hit and what didn't. And it's funny because the things that I really feel strongly about sometimes don't hit at all, and the thing that I just kind of write as a leftover just blows up. So it's hard to know what's going to hit. I know what topics I can write about that are going to attract the biggest audiences, but it's just like sometimes you think you write a feature story or a trend story on this topic and you think it's going to blow, and it just kind of goes like that. And the thing that you just do because it came across your desk, that blows up. So it's hard. It's hard to predict what audiences are going to eat up. I mean, you can say Kim Kardashian, that's going to blow up. You can say LeBron James, that's going to blow up. But certain, just your everyday thing is just a little more difficult.
Well, with that being said, because and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm figuring that you come back to a time of Sports Illustrated. I can still remember some of the Sports Illustrated cover stories. You could probably still remember. I'm talking about photos. You could probably still remember the writers and the stories themselves. You can remember the bylines and the words in there. With that being said, how frustrating, because I'll tell you, we've done a lot of these podcasts. We've had a lot of really good ones, They might not necessarily be the most watched, and this is probably one of them. Might not necessarily be the most watched. If there's something potentially negative our biggest podcast has been something that has been negative in nature.
Yeah.
Everybody
That's
tuned in. And I'm like,
that's
how frustrating is it for you to
that's the
have to
frustrating thing.
sometimes put that cut out there to
That and
sell,
see,
but also,
yes,
you know what I mean?
that and not to interrupt you, but that's the frustrating thing because people will say, "All y'all write about is negative news. All y'all write about is negative news," and I can write 38 positive stories, but if I write one that's factually correct, is negative, you're going to say that all the other 38 were not good, but you're going to read that negative one.
Right.
That one negative one is going to blow up all the other 38 good ones. People like negative news. If you turn on your local news, I'm sure it's the same in Atlanta as it is here. They lead out with something. They start the news with something bad every night. You would think that Charlotte's like the gunfight, the OK Corral. I
The
look
murder
outside,
capital of
birds,
America.
it's birds chirping, and I was like, I didn't see all that. I mean, not to say that bad things happen, but when you watch the news, it just makes you seem like it's on 10 or something. And it's the same in my industry that on the newspaper side is that people respond to negative news. And I mean, you see it in your podcast numbers. It just what is.
Now with that being said, and we're gonna get a little bit into now. To me, it seems like the media changed pretty quickly. Like this whole, just as simple as you just said, somebody's picture might be there, and that their column or whatever.
Yeah.
It seemed like real quick the columnists actually became, because I've never been in journalism school, but I think one of the first things in journalism is don't be the story.
Yes.
It seemed like that flipped. Like Monday it was don't be the story. Tuesday it was totally flipped.
Well, because you can make
how
money.
Interesting has that been?
You can make money being a story now. I mean,
right.
Guys, you can make a decent living being a reporter. Now, if you get to a big market, you can make a decent living being a reporter, but you can make a whole lot of money. I mean, like generational cash. If you can get onto a regional to a national network, and that's what guys are doing now. And to do that, you have to make yourself a brand, and to make yourself a brand, you sort of have to become the story. And now everybody has a take. The Skip Bayless started this thing with cold pizza. Having a take. And
is that where it started?
Yeah, cold pizza back
Okay.
like 13, 14. That was the first time I'd seen, the takes. I mean, and honestly, all that is a televised version of the sports column. It's
which
like
I love.
You'd open up the newspaper, and down the left side of the front page was the sports columns. Every city had one, and that's all. That's all that the take was really. If you think, I mean, boy, it's changed a lot now because they have multiple guys having a take. But end of the day, the columnist in the sports page, that was his take. He was telling you what I thought about the Falcons losing or the Panthers losing or Dean Smith retiring, whatever it is, that was his take. And all you're watching is a televised version of the column. Skip Bayless came from newspapers.
But
Stephen A. Smith came from newspapers. And they just took that take of the columnist and blew it up. And they're multimillionaires.
But technically,
I mean, everybody starts sports reporters on Sunday.
That's what I'm saying. Didn't it start with Dick Schaap and sports reporters? And obviously they did it differently. But
it wasn't quite.
It wasn't just put the hot sauce. They just put the hot sauce on.
It didn't have the hot sauce, but that's what attracted people. Right. Because it was like barbershop talk on television. Like, can you believe that dude said that? And hey man, I'm not mad at it because now you look at what started on. It was on ESPN2, like at 10:30 in the morning. Like it was opposite. ESPN was showing what's Kiana Tom? She was like the Asian exercise girl. I can't think of the name. Body shaping. It was opposite body shaping on ESPN2. Nobody watched it, and it's like now you turn on ESPN or Fox, and every show is some version of cold pizza. Every last show you watch.
Right. Well, as they say in the NFL or NBA, it's a copycat league. If something's successful, a million other people are going to copycat.
Well, Stephen A. Smith was signed $25 million a year or something. So yeah.
So
works.
With that being said, how much have you had to kind of change your? Because you had to do it regardless if anything for 35 years. how much have you had to change your brand and the way you do things as times have changed or technology has changed?
You had to evolve with the technology because, primarily I've always covered college and local high school sports. That's been my primary area. And because you're covering young people, you have to, evolve as they evolve. Where are they going? They went to the AOL with the little blue, the when you
Right.
sign on. And then they, Twitter came out with 12, 13. They went to Twitter. Now they're on Instagram and TikTok. So you have to go to where they are. I'm always trying to draw them back to where you are. I
Mhm.
think the big fight now is that everybody wants everything to be free. And the biggest mistake newspapers ever made was like during the recession era, thinking that it would be okay to put the whole newspaper online for free. That was a good idea. And people got used to getting things for free. You can't get, I tell people all the time, you can't go to Chick-fil-A and get a chicken sandwich for free. Why do you think you should be able to get these are paid professionals. I mean, what do you think you're supposed to get that for free? Um, so I think that was a big mistake we made. But me, I just try to follow where the young people are going. And obviously you have to learn how to use the analytics. Now we got to learn a little bit how to use AI to do our jobs. Definitely had to learn how to use social media. I learned Canva, which somebody had learned before, and then the whole video thing. Now, remember, I went to college for video, so video was being on camera came naturally for me. For a lot of my colleagues, it did not. So that was definitely we took classes like how to speak, how to be on television, and I learned, how to host podcasts like what you're doing. I learned 3 different podcast environments. I like StreamYard now. But um, just trying to always stay, one step ahead of the game. I'm older, it's a young man's game, so I gotta stay up to date.
Well, you look like a young man.
I appreciate that.
With that being said, do you think covering um, kind of grassroots high school, and obviously you cover college as well, do you
Mhm.
think that does keep you young?
Yeah,
Because it keeps you
yeah,
attached to young people.
yeah. It's funny. I live in a 55 plus community, and you see all the gray hairs at the pool, right? And it's like
Don't be ready to die,
that
man.
look that looks so foreign to me. It's cool. I like being here, but I mean, it just looks so foreign to me because I'm used to being around teenagers and,
Right.
and 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds, and it does keep you young. It's just, I mean, like the thing I like about it when you cover pro sports, generally, not always, but you're going to get into some guys that are going to be there 10, 12, 13 years. And it's going to be the same guy, the same over and over and over and over and over. It never changes. In high schools and colleges, every 4 years, that snake sheds its skin. There's a whole new group of people coming in, whole new group of families, whole new group of stories, whole new group of readers you can hope to draw. So if I missed you the last time, we struggle a little bit. I always have a new group to try to
Right.
get early and get attached to what we're doing, and that's always fun. And to get a chance to meet some of these guys, you kind of know guys who have a shot, and to kind of get a chance to know them when they're younger. I talked about Drake May earlier, who was a starter quarterback for the Patriots. His brother played at Carolina, hit one of the biggest shots in Chapel history,
Yeah.
and
Hell of a
against
shot.
Kentucky. Luke May,
Yeah.
yeah. And I covered Luke in high school. And everybody thought Luke was gonna, go to the pros. He was gonna be the guy, and it didn't quite work out for him. And then they had a brother, Bo, that played baseball on Florida's national championship baseball team. And there's another brother who went to Chapel Hill and walked on to play basketball. But I got to know Drake from the time he was, I don't know, fifth or sixth grade. I knew his dad. His dad was one of the best high school players ever in North Carolina. Went to Chapel Hill, played baseball and football. Mark May, but he threw it. He literally threw his shoulder out.
Wow.
But he was a quarterback and a pitcher, and he was like the number one player in the country. He was unreal. But to get to know a family like that when they're young is kind of cool.
With that being said, and you spoke a little bit about the newspaper scene, and I'm not breaking any new news here.
Yeah,
Newspapers have been the newspaper model
decimated, decimated,
has
decimated.
I'm going to say changed within the last 10 years
Yeah,
dramatically.
change is not the right word. I mean, when I started at the Charlotte Observer, I told you like going to New York City every day. We had a five floor building right in the heart of town. The Panther Stadium was actually built right behind our building. We had free parking for the Panthers for a long time. But when I would go up to the fourth floor where the newsroom was and the elevator would open, it was literally like walking into a city. I mean, it's loud, the phones are ringing, people smoking, and there's all this.
Yeah, people
You could hardly
smoking. That's
work.
what
It
I
was
was
just
thinking.
there was so much. I mean, just chatter, and you know,
Right.
every department had its own secretary, assistant, clerk, whatever you want to call it. And it was just like another. And there are all these glass offices. So all the important people had glass offices. It was like it's like going to a football game and people sitting up in the booth, you know, and then everybody
Right.
else is out, out on the regular seats. And um, it was incredible. But we went from like 300 and 56 some odd reporters back then to less than 100. So and that's not just the Charlotte Observer. That's everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
And what I talked about before, giving away content for free hurt. Um, all the other media's popping up hurt. Um, but the biggest thing was just losing advertisers like the Craigslist and things like that. The internet really took away the heart of the newspaper business. Those car ads, you buy the paper and you have a whole section on Friday full of car ads. Those went away.
Mhm.
Um, and to send those trucks out miles and miles and miles, Atlanta Constitution does it too, out to the hinterlands. That's really expensive. And then people started getting their news other places. They started going on the phone, going on social media, and it's really hurt. And the newspapers have really struggled, and I hate to see it. And they're trying to find ways. I think there's a little bit of a bounce back. They're trying to find ways to monetize themselves again through subscription sales and ads on the internet are a little different than ads in print, but they're trying to figure out a way. And I hope, I'm towards the end of my career, but I hope that this business model will continue to be viable because it's such a good one. And it's so much fun. I mean, if work can be fun, it's so much fun. And I would just hate to see that go away because it was really good to me. It's really been good to me.
Do how do you feel about the barriers to entry in this game? Because I'm gonna be, and I might be part of the problem. You went
Um,
to journalism school, and you are a journalist
yeah,
at your core. You've done
I
your
think,
time. You are a journalist, and
yeah,
now the game has changed so much. And you know what I'm saying, in the last just in
I,
the last
I
10
think,
years. How do you
I
feel
think,
about that?
I think, I think there's some anger among journalists because anybody now thinks they can just come do what we do.
And it's
And
hard. It's hard.
no, but it's easy to do. I mean, anybody can get a microphone, anybody can like start a Substack, and you can
Yeah.
you can do that. And the problem is, and I don't, I'm not talking about you. I'm saying the problem is that for most of those people, there are any rules and regulations and standards. They just kind of do whatever they want to do. They
Mhm.
steal photos, they steal quotes, they put out incorrect information.
Right.
Um, and we do have standards and things that we follow. And I think that, this whole era of disinformation is just fueled even more because anybody can get on, social media and scream there's a fire over there. And it just it hurts media's reputation. And then you have, people saying don't trust the media. And I think that's more pointed towards national media.
What you alluded
But
to
it
earlier. What you
but it
alluded to
hurts. But
earlier.
yeah, but it hurts local media as well. Because I remember like when I started, media being a reporter was like one of the, at least in this community, was a revered job. I was speaking to classes, 3, 4 times a month. Going to banks. I mean, it was like he works with Charlotte Observer. And now it's like, oh, bro, get away from me, you stink. It's like
Come
it's
on, man.
kind of
It's not
hurtful.
that bad. It's not that
Yeah, it's kind of hurtful because this is something that I've prided myself on doing for such a long time. I've enjoyed doing it, and I respect a lot of the people that come into the space and don't have the training, didn't go to school for it. I try to respect them. Some of them I think do pretty well. Some of them I wish you didn't, but I can't stop them because people are supplementing. A lot of people are supplementing their income. They might
Mhm.
have another job, and this is like a supplemental income that works for them. And I mean, I can't hate on it, but it's just like I can't go start a bank and work at a bank, but it's just how social media just made it easy for everybody to have a voice. And I think that it's definitely diluted the field a little bit, and it's definitely added to the decline of newspapers as well. And TV stations, not just newspapers, TV stations too.
Well, I actually think, broadly speaking, it's technology. And it's hurt music too. The barriers to entry have gone down.
Oh man,
so much.
you know what I hate about music? Funny you brought that up. We were talking about Beyonce, and my barber was big Beyonce. My barber's a big Janet Jackson fan, who I love as well, and a big
Oh my
Beyonce
goodness.
fan. And he's saying that we were talking about record sales, and he's talking about Beyonce's record sales versus Janet's record sales. And I said, well,
You can't compare them. You can't
I
compare
said
them.
exactly, because I said when Janet come out with a song or album, you had to go to the Camelot. You had to go through them boxes, pull that record out or pull that CD out, and take it to the counter and give that man $17.99.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now I have Apple Music for my family. $15.99. My wife, my 2 kids, and me can all download that Beyonce album with a push of a button, and she gets the same number of sales. She got 4 sales. And you think that's the same? Oh, well, I didn't think about it like that. I said, yeah. So you take Michael Jackson, who sold 35 million of them albums for Thriller. People took that album to the counter and said, I want Thriller. They didn't press the button and say, I want Chris Brown. Because if I don't like Chris Brown, I just press another button and he goes away. It's not the same.
Well,
I don't
don't think you could compare the two. I just don't think you compare the two.
You touched the button there. I don't know. And then this whole thing now, when you buy a concert ticket, they also count it as a record sale. I'm like, Beyonce is a great artist. I mean, no, I don't want the Beehive coming for me, but Beyonce is a great artist. But it's just not. It's an apples to oranges comparison.
I actually think it's almost like sports, like LeBron and Mike. Both of them are great.
Here we go.
Both of them are great.
Yeah.
Both of them, there's nothing wrong with it. And I just think it's the American way. We got to be like, somebody's better than somebody else.
I think the better argument. I think the better argument is talk about the best players by position. It's just so hard to compare generations. I mean, Mike won his first 3 rings. There were 4 expansion teams put into the league during that time. Mike won the second 3 rings. There were 4 more expansion teams put in at that time. And you can make the same argument about LeBron. I mean, so you can make arguments on either one.
Right.
I think LeBron James had the best basketball career of any athlete we've ever seen. Maybe in any.
That's without a doubt. That's without a doubt.
And I think Michael Jordan at his apex was like anything we've ever seen. So you want to take a 5 or 6 year run, and you want to take a 20-year run. I would. It's funny because older people are going to say Michael Jordan. For older people getting older. If you remember when we were younger, they used to argue Wilt or Kareem, right? And then those people who argue Wilt or Kareem have aged out. And even before that, it was Bill Russell. Like my grandfather used to say it was Bill Russell was the greatest. So I think it kind of goes with ages. And as the people our age get older, and the ones who grew up on Michael Jordan, LeBron's going to become even more so the GOAT than what a lot of people feel he is now. I definitely feel I deal with young people, and they think LeBron's the GOAT.
Well, that's because
I'm just telling you. I deal with young people, and I would say by about a 7-3 margin, they'll say LeBron's the GOAT.
Well, I mean, and I don't know who's the GOAT, but sometimes cats, we all wax poetic about 6th grade and the old days. Sometimes cats act like Michael Jordan never missed a jump shot. Like
no, Mike didn't win until he got with Scottie Pippen. But I mean we've been very blessed. If you're around our age, you've been very blessed. You've seen the best basketball players, plural. You've seen the greatest golfer ever. You've seen the greatest women's tennis player ever. You've seen the greatest track. You saw the first greatest track runner ever, Carl Lewis. Then you saw the second one was even better than Carl Lewis. You saw the greatest swimmer, and Michael Phelps. I mean, you've seen the best of the best. We've been very fortunate to see that.
Well, you talk about being fortunate. I'm gonna get you out of here because I said I wasn't gonna be longer than an hour. But I got one question for you. Then I've got one other thing I'm gonna ask you about your sons because you mentioned them earlier.
All right. Okay.
You went to Carolina.
Yes.
Were you in the house when Len Bias came through the Dean Dome?
I was in front row.
Talk a little bit about Len Bias.
Okay, the basket. He has a famous backwards
Yeah,
dunk.
he dunked on
The
Warren Martin. I
the
think
the
he got
first
Warren
game, the
Martin.
first game at the Smith Center. I'm under that.
Yeah.
I'm like right
Uh-huh.
under that where he dunked it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Len Bias at the time, people thought he was every bit of Michael Jordan. I mean, they thought he
He was
was,
bigger. He was bigger.
yeah, they thought he was like he goes to Boston, it's over.
Yeah.
I mean, he jumped out of the gym. He shot it at the top. He shot like Kevin Durant, the top of his arm. It's impossible to block. I mean, he was freaky athletic. Yeah, I mean, he had everything. Great defender. I mean, he had everything. Great body. I mean, you put him up there with Bird and McHale and Parrish. I mean, that'd been unreal. I mean, you bring this guy off the bench as your sixth man. That just been. I mean, Boston. They won what 3 in the '80s. They would have won
Yeah.
3 more.
There have been a lot of sad things that happen, and you hate ranking sad things,
Yeah.
but him passing away is probably one of the saddest things I can remember happening, man. It was
Yeah.
just it was just sad. Like you just want to go to sleep sad. But with that being said, we're going to talk about something that is not sad, man.
Okay.
And we've talked a lot about your fantastic career and we get what we try to do on here is give people their flowers, and hopefully you understand how much you are appreciated, even though you say you no longer go to speak to schools. We definitely appreciate you and everything you've meant to the culture.
Yeah.
But I have to think, man, your greatest joy is both of your kids, man, Trey, and I think is it Kamani?
Kamani. Yeah, Kamani.
Kamani. Talk a little bit about their journeys and how proud I'm sure you and the rest of your family are of them and what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I told you I fell in love with basketball in college, playing in Woodland Gym intramural. We won an intramural championship when I was in Chapel Hill, by the way.
Oh, come on, Lex. Don't start that now.
Nah, I got to tell you about.
We have to be able to confirm the stories on it.
Well, it's real. But I've always been a basketball guy, and my son, we started him out playing my oldest son. We started him out playing flag football. He didn't really like that. When he played tackle football, he really didn't like that. He didn't like being outside in the heat and the cold. And I just tried him out in basketball one day, and he was a natural. He could really shoot it. From the time he was like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember Dale Curry, Steph Curry's dad, was, I said, my son really can shoot, Dad. What's your advice? And he said, don't let him shoot on a 10-foot hoop. So I lowered the hoop outside the 9-foot, and I put him in the league with 9-foot goals. And the reason why, because you ever seen little kids when they try to shoot, they're down here, and everybody wants to shoot distance. So he could
strong.
he could really shoot to the 9-foot. So I did that, and he just, in the driveway shooting. I used to he'd take free throws, and I play the music real loud, right away shot, like turn it up, try to knock him off. He just became a really good basketball player, and then he got serious about it. He started training and got him a trainer, and then he actually worked out with Brandon Payne, who's now Stephen Curry's trainer. Brandon Payne had a place here that he worked out a lot of pro athletes, and they started working out young guys who he thought were going to be good, and he kind of took off after that. And my baby boy was there watching all of it, so he wanted to be a basketball player too. And so we just rode him, man. We followed him through AAU and school ball, and just so many highlights for both of them. They both won gobs of AAU games and regional and national and state championships growing up. And Trey went to college at Santa Clara, and his teammate Jalen Williams just won a championship with OKC.
Oh wow!
I call him Arizona. He's from Arizona, so I call him Arizona. That's his nickname. And Trey transferred to Notre Dame. He had a game-winning shot in the ACC tournament, and he's about to go to France and play in one of the top 5 leagues in the world this summer, which is great. My baby boy was at Belmont Abbey last year. He led the team in scoring. Belmont Abbey is a Division II school right outside of Charlotte. Mm-hmm. He led him in scoring. He was one of the top 3 3-point shooters in the country. Remember, I told you he was watching his brother shoot. He's left-handed. He was watching his brother shoot. He made 46% of the threes last year. He really shoot it. And so he's going to a real high-level D2 school in Charleston, West Virginia, Concord, West Virginia, this year.
Okay.
For his junior year. So Dad doesn't have to pay for school and get a chance to watch both his boys play. It's pretty cool.
Hey man, that first part of that sentence, I know you're proud of him, but that first part of that sentence, man, that's the blessing. Dad.
Oh man, and the real. I mean, what I didn't think was a blessing at the time was the whole COVID thing. Trey was playing during COVID, and they got that extra year, so he has 2 degrees from Notre Dame. for free. He
Yes,
got a
sir.
master's as well. So yeah, that was cool. And it's been a great experience, man. Going to the NCAA tournament was really cool. And like I said, seeing him win, I think one of my favorite memories of Trey were probably like things you guys would know about when he was younger and he was hitting big shots. But to see him win an ACC tournament game with a 3-pointer from about 9,000 feet, and he knew it was good and he let it go against Wake Forest. That was pretty cool. That was a highlight for me.
Let me ask you this, and we're gonna get you out of it. Actually, I do have one last question I want to ask you. But
Okay.
as a parent, and you've covered like hell, you at in North Carolina with Michael Jordan in '84. As a parent, you talked about AAU,
Hmm.
and I know all the rolling around you all probably did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What are your most fond memories? Are they because it's strangely enough, I got to play in some pretty big arenas. My
Yeah.
most fond memories are not playing in big arenas. It's like playing at the local gym when I was in the seventh, eighth grade. Those are some of my most treasured memories. As a parent, you watching your son, what
Hmm.
are kind of your most favorite memories? Is it the big stuff that most people would think about, or is it maybe an AAU game that nobody knew, or like a seventh grade
No,
game
man.
that nobody even talked
The practices and the training. I think and I know that sounds weird,
about?
but just because I coached them both, so
Mhm.
going to practice and just watching them seeing them physically get better, seeing them grow, seeing them ask questions, seeing them interact with their teammates. The guys that they grew up with, they're still friends with now. Like Trey's best friend, Motorson, is Devon Dotson, who went to Kansas, was All
Oh yeah.
American. They play high school ball together at Providence
Oh
State.
wow.
And Grant Williams was on the team as well. That's with the Hornets now. They went to Tennessee, two-time player of the
Yep.
year at the SEC. Remember, I was telling you how good Charlotte basketball is. I
Well,
miss it.
well, you put them in the right position. Obviously, keep going.
Well, yeah, well that's the truth of that too. But that's a whole other story. But they became friends back then. They're still friends now, and that's really cool to see. Grant's having a basketball camp next week, and it's kind of funny because I remember when Grant was the one going to basketball camps. Now he's hosting a basketball camp with his name on it, and that's just really cool to see.
Last question. This is it. Um, and I've got to ask you this because you missed the Charlotte. Have you been surprised at how good Steph Curry ultimately became? Because I would assume you've seen him from the
Yeah, I was
beginning.
waiting for you to hit me with a Steph Curry. Anytime I do one of these, somebody asks about Steph Curry. I mean, I've known Dell for a long, long time. 30 something years. I remember when Steph was a little itty bitty kid. Steph in high school, I didn't think was going to be anywhere close to what he was. I mean, his brother Seth was actually a better high school basketball player. Seth
Mhm.
was the one everybody kind of thought was going to be good, real good. Seth
And
went
he still had a good
to
career. I mean,
yeah,
he still
Seth
had
went
a
to
good career.
Liberty. Seth went to Liberty, and then he transferred to Duke. It seemed like he averaged 20 at Duke, but I
Yeah,
mean,
he had a good career, dude.
he was a really good. He's a heck of a golfer now, by the way.
Mm.
He's probably a 2 handicap, but Steph was so little in high school. He was so tiny. I remember in the state championship game, I wanted his junior year maybe, and his mom screaming at him, and he just looked so small out there.
Right.
And I was like, he's trying, but then he goes to Davidson the first game, and he has like I don't know 13 turnovers or something. I was like, nah. Then the next game he has 30, and it's like he went. He's a perfect example of a guy. Virginia Tech won them. They won him maybe I don't know if it was walk on or come off the bench, whatever it was. It was not going to be a role that he really wanted. But he's a perfect example of a guy who went to a smaller school and played for a coach who believed in him, stayed there and blossomed and developed. I think a lot of guys could learn lessons from that, particularly in this transfer era and particularly in NIL era. And I know it's hard to turn down 4, 5, 600 grand, but I think Steph would turn down 4, 5, 600 grand in high school for what he's turned out to be. He's on his way to a Billy, and I think that Bob McKillop was just the right guy at the right time, and he let Steph do all those turnovers and all that crazy stuff you guys see now. He was doing back then. It just
Yeah,
wasn't always going in like it's going in now.
right.
But his coach saw that where he was going and allowed him to do that. Didn't pull him out of games. Didn't cuss him out. Didn't second guess him. Let him grow into what he became. And I mean, nobody could have seen that. We all knew he was a great shooter, but not that great. I mean, his dad was a phenomenal shooter, but
Man,
nobody saw that coming.
man, it's so good.
That's just God gift. That's just God's gift. That's all it is.
But you know what? It's so much insight that you just gave, because and Mark Jackson too, when he went to Golden State. Sometimes you've got to, and Colin Cowherd, you know, I like Colin Cowherd. He always says this: chase good management, not money.
Yes.
And that's what he did. He went a place, you're talking about McKillop and also Mark Jackson. He went with people who let him play through his mistakes. And
it's funny. Now they wanted to go to New York. Yeah, they wanted to go to New York real bad. I think it was 7, and they got picked up at Golden State, and that's the best thing they've ever done.
It takes a certain type of coach to let or have a person shoot a 40-foot jump shot and it not go in, and you be like, "Oh, it's okay, shoot another one."
And the thing about Steph is, a lot of people thought he wasn't going to work out in the NBA. He's too small. He can't handle the ball. He can be bullied. He can't defend. And he always had, remember, he had always had ankle injuries. He's always hurt.
Right. It was him and Monte Ellis. People were like, "Man, why are you keeping Curry instead of Monte Ellis?"
Yeah. The year he won MVP, he was on a $44 million contract, multi-year. The year he won MVP. So I mean, he really, he stuck to it. He believed in himself. He didn't listen to the doubters. Now the man's got his own shoe brand, beautiful wife, beautiful family. You can't hate it, man.
Hey, it's good to be Steph Curry, but also it's good to be my man Langston Wertz Jr. Man, thank you so much for joining Lost Letterman tonight, man. I've followed your career from afar, man, but I'm definitely thankful that we were able to link up tonight and you share your story, man.
Well, thanks for having me on, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, sir, man. Hold it down.
All right, man. Take care. Peace.